toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. Praise be to thee, most supreme God, omnipotent, omnipresent, all-pervading, the only being. Take us in thy parental arms, raise us from the denseness of the earth. Thy beauty do we worship, to thee do we give willing surrender. Most merciful and compassionate God, the idealized Lord of the whole humanity, thee only do we worship, and towards thee alone do we aspire. Open our hearts towards thy beauty, illuminate our souls with divine light. O thou, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, all-powerful creator, sustainer, judge, and forgiver of our shortcomings, Lord God of the east and of the west, and of the worlds above and below, and of the seen and unseen beings, pour upon us thy love and thy light. Give sustenance to our bodies, hearts, and souls. Use us for the purpose that thy wisdom chooseth, and guide us on the path to thine own goodness. Draw us closer to thee every moment of our life, until in us be reflected thy grace, thy glory, thy wisdom, thy joy, and thy peace. Inspire of my mind, consoler of my heart, healer of my spirit, thy presence lifteth me from earth to heaven. Thy words flow as a sacred river. Thy thought riseth as a divine spring. Thy tender feelings awaken sympathy in my heart. Beloved teacher, thy very being is forgiveness. The clouds of doubt and fear are scattered by thy piercing glance. All ignorance vanishes in thy illuminating presence. A new hope is born in my heart, by breathing thy peaceful atmosphere. O inspiring guide through life's puzzling ways, in thee I feel abundance of blessings. O thou, who art the maker, molder, and builder of the universe, build with thine own hands the universal, our temple for thy divine message of love, harmony, and beauty. So we'll do the purification breaths now, beginning with purification related to earth element. Breathing in and out through the nose. Drawing the magnetic aspect of earth energy up into your being with each inhalation. And allowing to be released into the earth with the exhalation, aspects of your being that no longer serve you.
Now we'll transition to the breath associated with the element of water in through the nose and out through the mouth. Tuning into those elements of water that are clearing and cooling, and the abundance and generosity of the water element. Now we'll transition to the element of fire in through the mouth and out through the nose. And you might imagine that you're inhaling right into your core, stoking that internal fire. And the heat from the fire rising, allow it to warm the heart and radiate out from the heart. Now we'll transition to the element of air in and out through the mouth. And identifying with that aspect of air that is lightness of being. And transitioning now to the breath of ether, a very fine, light breath in and out through both nose and mouth. Considering the permeation of ether and tuning in with the aspect of your being that is yourself, and at the same time being aware of dissolving the self into the one. Now relaxing the breath and relaxing your awareness, we'll prepare to do kasab, breathing up the left nostril, down the right, and then up the right and down the left, and then in and out through each. And touching the tongue to the roof of the mouth as we hold the breath and rolling the eyes up. And we'll do a count of 4, 8, 4, and we'll do 3 complete cycles. Okay?
Okay.
Did we say nayaras?
Beg your pardon?
Did we say nayaras?
No, later.
No, we'll say it later.
What do you want?
Why don't you take the dinner with you?
Okay, these next 2 lessons from Pir Vilayat, numbers 34 and 35 in the correspondence course, are mostly about perspective, seeing yourself in perspective with the universe, because we tend to get very involved in who we think we are. And it helps from time to time to step back a little bit and have a look. So we're going to go through this material, and then we'll do some practices to support what he talks about. And the title of lesson 34 is Think of Yourself as one of the stages moving toward the fulfillment of the divine purpose. Should I repeat that? Think of yourself as one of the stages moving towards the fulfillment of the divine purpose. What do you suppose that means? I mean, he's going to tell you, but just as a title.
You can think of yourself as a freshman, sophomore. Right?
The purpose being a BA or
I think it reminds me that of how far I have come, and that I don't know how far there is to go.
Yeah.
That's a good way to see it, yeah.
But it makes me wonder, like my intellectual mind goes, oh, are there stages that I don't know about? What are their names? How do I know I'm a sheep? The busy mind does that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you'll notice that at any given moment, as far as you're concerned, you're there. You know? Except for maybe some minor modifications that, may show up, but not anything too startling. Right? That's pretty much how we feel. Oh, okay, well, I won't include you then. How is it that you feel? Like, how do you feel?
About my place in my...
In the fulfillment of the divine purpose.
Lately, like I am flying out in space and don't have, and not tied into the bigger plan.
You're not tied into the bigger plan?
Somehow, I don't feel connected.
Yeah? Okay. How could you not be connected?
I know.
That's the
I don't
tricky
feel,
part. Right?
I don't feel separate. I don't want to feel separate. I just don't feel connected.
Okay.
I realize, I think intellectually
That's not possible.
that it's not possible and that I am, but I don't feel that.
Okay. That's not an unusual or uncommon feeling, actually. Especially when you're in a transition phase,
Yeah.
right? Moving from one stage to the next. Anyone else have an opinion about that?
I think for me, when I hear it, it makes everybody so tender to me because it's just kind of an equality that we all have. We're all here to participate together in that divine purpose, so it makes everybody very lovable. That's kind of what I'm feeling about.
Okay.
Interesting how we think from the point of view of the human being, right? Instead of there's a larger picture here, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
And we also think in terms of other people,
yeah.
in comparison, right? Everybody pretty much kind of had, touched on that in some way, even you, because you're disconnected from others, right? But we're referencing our sense of being
Externally.
In comparison to.
in comparison to other people. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm cooler than he is. She's way beyond me, or however it is we might be thinking.
I sometimes get part of what I sense is a sense of inadequacy and the weight of responsibility.
Yeah. I had a long conversation on Facebook this morning with one of my students who was worried about all his friends who are basically asleep. I said, stop worrying. You have no responsibility towards their awakening. Because, he feels like he needs to do something. He's a young man, so you get older, you know better. But it was that
Don't
whole
wake up those who are asleep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The phrase is somewhere in it used to be on the Sufi order stationery, right? What it said was the message is a clarion for those meant to awaken and a lullaby for those meant to remain asleep. All the Sufi order stationery had that little phrase,
Wow.
and then it was even on the envelopes. They took it off though. But it's important to remember that. And as you've heard me say many times, there's no merit in being awake. It's just who you are. That's it.
I know, it's just a mistake. Can we go back to sleep?
Actually, you can. You can go back to sleep. There's a price, however. Okay?
All right.
All right. Would you like me to tell you
How
the price?
much does it cost?
It costs you your yeah, that's it. You're done. You're finished. There'd be no more evolution for you. That's what happens.
Is that true? People don't go in and out?
That's it. It was. I think I've mentioned this. I got to turn this off.
I disagree.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the very last classes that the leaders had with Pir Vilayat in Sudan, like a year before he died. He gathered as many of us as could get there. It was like 200 of us, right? Stuffed into that little room.
Around the world.
Yeah.
The room holds about 50 people, and we were we were jammed in there like sardines. And the one thing that I remember him saying was that when you are confronted with, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember his exact words, but essentially what he said is when you are confronted with a status change, so to speak, you have to push through something.
Yeah.
And you don't do it, in this age, when you die, that's it. You're just reabsorbed into the one, and your soul gets no more chances. So this is a very critical stage in this fulfillment of divine purpose situation.
But I have a question, and I've wondered this before. To what degree are the teachings of the leaders reflective of their own life transition? So if we look at Pirzia, what he is going through, taking on this tremendous role.
Yeah.
Or if we look at Pirvalite in the year or so before he died, approaching his own end of this existence.
He made some changes in the things he was teaching.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years. Oh yeah.
So
they become much broader.
So I guess my question is, doesn't that put a slightly different perspective on a statement like you just shared with us?
Sure it does. Yeah, of course it does. He's seeing things, and from the point of view of someone that's making the major transition that everyone makes in each lifetime. I remember I was thinking about this the other day. If you read my book and read the last chapter on death, about my the obituary from my friend Michael.
Mm-hmm.
I visited him, when he was in the hospice, and I remember I sat in there one day and I was alone with him, and I asked him, "What are you doing? Well, where are you at? What's going on?" He says, "Well, I'm about 30 feet above Hobbitville," is what he said.
Wow.
And I thought, what he's experiencing is very, dream-like astral state. That's where he was all the time in the last couple of weeks. So you're right. There is a shift in perspective depending on your situation or condition. So, we tend to be very... Well, I'm just going to go ahead and read this and not lecture anymore.
When you talked about Piraliat saying that you have one chance to...
Yeah. It was a surprising thing for him to say.
Meaning this lifetime? Or
that's it. You're done. This is a very critical period.
In other words, it's different from ages past.
Yes.
And different from lifetimes past.
That's right.
But he's not negating reincarnation.
No,
Am I hearing that right? Okay.
No, not at all.
We're talking about this era.
No, Sufis have no problem with reincarnation. We just don't talk about it. And the reason we don't talk about it is, what do you think? Why do you think we don't talk about it?
People get absorbed by it.
That's right.
It's kind of
they get attached to it.
Get all confused by it.
But what I think I heard you say, that he said, is that in this age of humanity, there is no more reincarnation. Is that what he meant?
No.
Well, that's what I'm getting from
No, not at all. What he said was, if you are confronted with a transitional experience and you retreat from it, that's it.
Okay.
You as a
your particular soul gets reabsorbed into the one.
So you have to
doesn't have any uniqueness anymore.
That's right. You have to push through.
Have a chance to come.
That's right.
Okay.
And that can be all kinds of things for all kinds of people.
Sure.
Doesn't necessarily have to be some kind of major spiritual enlightening experience. It could be just somebody who's consistently cruel suddenly being confronted with some way of being kind, and it would take a very a great deal for them to do that. I can imagine people like that.
So is it more that it's a quality of willingness to make a change?
Well, yeah. Plus,
taking the responsibility.
Also you're confronting yourself always.
Mm-hmm.
You're confronting the self and the who you think you are. That never stops, guys. That goes on and on and on and on. We're always going to be confronted because we're always going to find a way to make it safe for us, whatever it may be.
Or not.
No, seriously. You always, even within danger, danger can be safe for someone. Because that's what they understand. Yeah, I mean, we get that with hypnosis clients all the time. Basically, they're coming to you and saying, "This is where I feel safe. I need to push beyond that." That's fundamental. Wouldn't you say that that's true?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Any kind of self-medicating, any comfort zone, any fear, any...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I have two questions. Do you think that what he was saying was upon that reabsorption, will you have never existed?
Good question. I don't know.
And then
I don't know the
secondly,
answer to that.
would that reabsorption be so bad when the ultimate goal is to know and feel and be one? Like, it's not, that's not a bad
Yeah,
ending.
is that a reward?
That's what I'm saying. Like, can I opt out? Let's go. Yeah.
Listen to you.
You're going to hear a lot of that.
Can I get out of this?
No, I just think that it's, yeah.
Take this cup.
I mean, like some part of, that I guess the soul of me understands that. And, I can really understand the work and the responsibility and everything like that. But I think that the hopeful thing is that's not such a bad ending.
Well, it was like a couple of weeks ago we were talking about resurrection. What does that really mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm more confused than ever on that topic.
Okay. All right, moving right along.
Let's just move along.
Yeah.
Here we go. I started as a mineral. Then I became a vegetable. Then I became an animal. Then I became a human. I will continue in the heavenly spheres. Now, perhaps one should do the reverse. I was a pure vibration and manifested as a mineral, as a crystal. And then the molecules of my being began to seek for new modes of life. It was all that energy that proliferated into my plant state. I am the bounty of my heavenly condition and began to manifest into forms. How great! And colors of great variety. Then I evolved into and was suffering from being tethered by roots, and I sought to be able to move about in freedom, and my heavenly counterpart was beginning to feel the need to involve myself deeper into matter, with more freedom. Then I became human, and as I became human, the whole universe of the heavens met the universe of the earth, and I was born out of the encounter between heaven and earth.
Wow. That's amazing. So beautiful.
When my consciousness was vibrating like an Aeolian harp, whatever that is, isn't that a harp that's like done by the wind? Aeolian harp?
Yeah,
Right?
but it's also the when you hit the strings, they continue to vibrate.
Continue to vibrate.
It's like so you have all these chords going at the same time.
Okay, the molecules of my body as a crystal could not grasp the meaning of my existence. When all that restless energy began to seek more expression in the condition of the plant, I remember as a flower, picking up the flashing of a star and longing to understand what a star is. And as I evolved into a plant and into an animal, I danced to the full moon, and I marveled at dawn, and I contemplated the stars. And somehow they had become more real to me than when I was a crystal and when I was a plant. But as I became a human, I realized that I was the stars, that I had become them, and that my thoughts are the thoughts of the universe. And I sought to awaken beyond my human condition. As I awoke, I discovered a universe in me. I was free from myself. And now, being free, I'm able to look right into the molecules of a crystal. Okay? Got all that? So, this is a good place where we can take this, your crystal, and what I want you to do
Just pass them around. No.
is, no, you're not pressing
Okay.
we could, I guess. Concentrate on that cluster of crystals.
Can you see?
You put in the form.
Yeah.
Concentrate on that cluster of crystals and see if you can enter your consciousness into the cluster of crystals while at the same time recognizing that there is a desire on the part of these crystals to understand their experience. Right?
Say that again.
Yeah, I think it's better if you pass it around, and there's other crystals here that can also pass it
Whatever.
around.
Sure.
Okay.
And just to
Want to take this one?
citrine to 12.
Yeah.
It's well.
Citron as well.
Yeah.
You want this?
No. So what you do now is hold the crystal in your, you look at the crystal, gaze at it, get it firmly fixed in your mind's eye, and then close your eyes and hold that being in your consciousness as long as you can. And then just see what happens. So I think you all know the stages of this kind of concentration. First, you concentrate on it, see it in your mind's eye, hold it as if you're visualizing it, and then see if you can enter into as if you are becoming the crystal. As best as you can. There's no hard and fast rule here. And just see how that feels. To touch that budding consciousness. Because crystals are the only mineral that grow. Okay. How does that feel? Yeah, you don't get to take them home.
When I become in the consciousness of the crystal, almost always the feeling that I have is anticipation
Anticipation, really?
and potential.
Cool.
Lovely.
Almost like it's a state that's waiting to just burst forth.
Ah. Okay.
I felt that kind of bursting, and I like that word anticipation. I felt like I experienced stages of. I had an oceanic stage where it was just waves, and then I over the earth and spreading out into the universe. Frequencies at the very end. I think the closest I connected was a real subtle frequency.
All this in the last 2 minutes?
Was that how long it was? Well, there was more. Those are the highlights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I felt very
Okay.
excited and happy for the idea of holding a being like that was on its own evolution and then connecting and being in there. And I felt very much inside at one point in purple, like I felt deep within that color and that frequency energy. So it was beautiful. It's like a buddy. It's like, yeah, it was like a friendship or a kinship, right?
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did a lot of Ellis.
Anybody else?
Well, I felt slightly maybe challenged to figure out how to embrace all
I forgot to feed the cat. I'm sorry. I've got to go do
The
this.
cat's like, I feel it.
I'm sorry.
Oh, is that what we're hearing?
Yeah, that's what we're hearing. Oh.
She doesn't know about
Tell
daylight
me
savings.
crystals and feed me. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
all the different facets and to how to even look at it and then I kind of relaxed into that and of course I had forgotten that minerals grow. So that became it became more of a living being. It felt more alive when it was in my mind.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I have to hear this all over again, so.
Oh, that's okay.
I know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Was there more?
No,
Okay.
I guess.
Did you have any declarations to make, Elena?
It went beyond the crystal.
Okay.
So it was this kind of a magnetic longing of connection. And it wasn't just the crystal, it was of other kinds of atomic things wanting to come together. Things, the wanting to come together.
Okay. Here's what Pure Light has to say about all that.
Well, can I hear what people said?
You want them to repeat it?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just curious.
I found that absorbing it somewhat challenging to absorb or take on the image, and then sort of relaxed into that, and then the thought of the crystal being something that grew was well, it was a renewed knowledge. So that was very warming and soothing, and I just I don't know if there was really wasn't a communion, but just a thinking of the crystal, realizing it was more of a living being, more than just looking at it. But it wasn't just looking at it and taking it in.
Yeah.
It was really feeling the whole being of the crystal and taking it in.
Oh, for me it was a sensation of being more than the crystal. It's the underlying energy of things wanting to come together in creation.
Oh, lovely.
Okay.
Yeah.
this experience before this explanation. So see how that's what he says jives with what you experienced and attempted to explain, right? Which is always the tricky part. Now, this is what we can do. Experience again what it was like to be a crystal. Experience again, see, because what he implied from the very beginning was that you've already done this. You have intimate knowledge of what it means to be a growing mineral. And visualize the tremendous effervescence in the life of a crystal, the molecules vibrating, the atoms jiggling, the electrons whirling and sparkling, the orderliness and the sense of being the expression of an almost purely mathematically perfect being, somehow manifesting the vibrations that constitute the language of the universe, frozen into crystals, the vibrations frozen into the likeness of crystals, and yet still throbbing at the subatomic level. We can do that. We can penetrate right into matter and experience the life in it because we were that before. We were crystals before. Can you experience the rigor of the irrevocable laws of the universe in giving the crystal its very fundamental quality? Some electrons manage to escape the limitations imposed by that rigor by absorbing light. They feed themselves with the energy of light, and it gives them the power to free themselves from the original orbital, and they begin to reach outwards, away from the pull of the proton. Then, when they use all the energy, they fall back to where they were and radiate light. You see how the electrons are excited by being enriched with light, the energy of light. The crystal is in its excited state, sparkling, dancing, even if like Cinderella for a short while. The electrons have their moment of glory. It is the intelligence of the universe coming through very rigid, constrained frameworks and seeking freedom, yet very restricted in the measure of freedom. Notice how he used a myth to explain it, Cinderella?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, isn't that cool? Guess what happened to Cinderella?
She became the queen.
Yeah.
So I found myself asking, what is the value of doing this exercise?
Okay.
But then as I listened, I went, well, it allows me to, it gives me a window into experiencing the universe expanding and growing.
Like I said, these two lessons are about perspective.
Yeah. And then it also connected to, like, I kind of feel sorry for the crystal because it's frozen. So maybe that kind of relates to what if I choose to stop this process?
What's all with all this stopping this morning?
No, well, it just
I like to think we can.
the subject was brought up, so when you were reading that, I made that connection. I was like, oh, so poor crystal. It's only going to go so far, and maybe that's what it would be like if someone chose
not quite
to
right.
not. Okay, enlighten me.
What we're talking about is an aspect of divine intent initially becomes the crystal because it has to first experience that very physical expression, extremely physical, rigid, right? And then
with that it grows.
And then with that, then it moves into the plant world, etc.
So if it chose to not take the challenge, it would be stuck in that state of what I experience of anticipation of the next phase. To be
How
stuck
about that there are
sad.
still being souls being spewed forth, and they need a vehicle? Otherwise, if that were not the case, then you can easily imagine that we would be in a state of pure energy, and we wouldn't need any of this physicality. But this is how many times have you heard me say this is just the beginning? We're just beginning. This is not the end. This is just the start. We worked all this time to get to this point of starting.
You mean this physical body is just the start of the journey of,
This
because-
era is the start of humanity becoming who it has always been meant to be.
in divine expression.
Yeah.
And so, if the divine expression has come into the mineral in the rigid form,
Yeah.
and then moved into a less rigid form with roots, which
Right.
is dependent on the planet Earth, and then the desire to be free into animals,
The soul moves into an animal.
and
Yep.
and then more desire to be experience the connection of itself to the creation that is. But doesn't talk about having been the stars, but that's sort of, you know, where the beginning of that expression is mineral on the earth. But prior to that, it was mineral in space.
No, it wasn't mineral. It was
Oh.
just
Chemistry,
energy.
energy.
Right. You know,
Right.
remember, we're not dealing when it moves into physical. This universe of physicality. There's more than one universe.
Yeah.
What did physicists?
28,000.
Yeah, right.
Ibn Arabi.
Right. According to Ibn Arabi, there's 28,000 universes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. This is just one. So it gets, you see how it starts to get complicated.
Yeah. Can
Right?
you hear
Parents
the part
get
about
really big.
Cinderella again? Do you mind
Cinderella?
reading it? Yeah, like
Okay.
that whole last
Da-da-da-da-da.
couple lines.
The crystal is in its exalted state, sparkling, dancing, even if like Cinderella for a short while. Okay?
Something about that reminded me when you were guiding us through the breaths, and you said, trying the earth breath, putting back in, letting go back into earth, the aspects that don't serve you anymore. That was really key because until you said that, I didn't even think of doing that. Letting go of some as I'm taking on others or realizing others. And through the list of like 4 or 5 things that just started naturally jumping off, one of them came to my mind, and it was contemplation. And I was like, well, wait a minute, I don't want to get rid of contemplation. And so I struggled with that for a second, and I understood it to be mental contemplation versus art.
Yeah.
And what you're reading in the Cinderella thing, I'm absorbing as the idea that, this perception, and we create our ideas are these well springs of this totality of us, and we're creating our realities like this, and something's resonating with these crystals as they have that consciousness to grow in this knowing of what it is that they're going to grow into. Like that.
Look at it in a slightly different way too.
Okay.
In the consciousness of the crystal, its fundamental reality is limitation.
Okay.
There's excitement, there's activity, there's energy.
Yeah, that's
But
what I meant.
but
yeah,
it's
that's
very
exactly what you were just
And then,
saying.
well, that's what he's saying. And then the
Yeah.
next stage, the plant stage, is slightly less limitation.
Okay. And on
Okay,
and on
because
and
a
on.
plant can propagate, can't it, and move
Yes.
from place to place. It's a slow process, but it can do it.
And so earlier when he says, in becoming human, we start to realize what you were just saying about the connection with the soul, that we are that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you have to get to that stage. In the stages prior, you're looking outward, attempting to understand, and your understanding becomes more and more refined. What he was saying in the first couple of earlier on, right? Until you finally reach humanity and have the capacity for contemplation.
Okay.
You don't have it
It
before.
almost feels like it's going backwards.
Think so?
Like getting younger instead
Yeah,
of...
but what else is going on?
No, but
Yeah, but what's actually taking place?
eternity
Come on.
is actually taking place.
How about that the universe is learning?
Yeah, creativity.
never forget that.
Yeah.
You're participating in a learning experience, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then there are things that are unknown.
Yeah.
Even though by definition all is known. So there's one of the great paradoxes. All right, moving next stage of confusion.
So you said we are right now at the start, but at the same time, aren't we also at the culmination of everything that's gone before? And so couldn't we apply that definition to every day and every phase?
In a way, I suppose. You're always the collection of textures of your own experience, whatever they may be.
I think another element that's really important here is to recognize that when you held those crystals in your hands, you were able to, your consciousnness was able to get into the consciousness of that crystal. You know, I had a purple one also, and I realized purpleness. So it's like, it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, and even the ecstasy of like receiving the light and so on. So what we're evolving here is consciousness. So I think we can move on to the next area here.
Okay, now. Oh, here we go. And now, I wish we had some, but we don't. Maybe we do.
Have some now what?
Can you get into the consciousness of a flower? Particularly a beautiful flower like some of the succulents in the desert of Arizona that might take, this is a very cool kind of paragraph here, might take 20 years to build up enough sugar to produce a flower.
Wow.
It starts as a bud, and you can almost see it opening up, and within a few hours it has become a fully fledged flower. An hour after that, the petals fall off and the plant has died.
Oh my God.
A moment of glory, and all of these colors are coming through. An elaborate building up of amino acids and proteins has expressed itself in this extravagant array of colors. And then the seed remains and the perfume is diffused into the atmosphere. Now, can you imagine the nostalgia of that plant to express the splendor that was invested in it and the limitations with which it can express that splendor? Did you get the critical word there?
The limitations.
Yep. Okay, it can't move very much. It's bound by its roots, and the only way that it can express that splendor is by colors and shapes. Within its own species, that form has been elaborated over eons of time, and you feel that nostalgia towards manifestation to overcome all the constraints and obstacles in order to break through in a moment of glory. Isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm.
So we do that as well, you know? It's like we learn that, and it's almost as if our beings are maybe somewhat afraid of that absolute expression of divine glory that we have the capacity to discover and to produce. You know, because are we involved more in our limitations or in our capacities?
For expansion and expression.
Yeah. I mean, how often do you hear yourself or others expressing the many limitations that you have? I can't do because.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the reasons vary. Right?
Seems like a way to avoid.
Yeah. I like it when they all grab their pens.
What do you do?
I always, you know.
Do you wonder what people are writing?
I'm not going to ask.
Well, that was just profound what you said about when we identify with the flower. I think you said it. I don't think you read it. Can we recognize our own reticent, the way I heard it, reticence to allow that divine manifestation to radiate through us. There is a reticence, there's a fear.
Yeah.
Am I good enough, or will I be rejected, or like whatever the fear is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, you want to get it right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people do make that expression, and they are often very clumsy at it,
Yeah.
even though they're doing their best to. Little kids do it all the time.
I'm going to tell you a little story that you mentioned about the bride picking up the pens.
Oh, yeah?
This is the story of Hazrat Inayat Khan when he went to be with his
Oh, right.
teacher. And the teacher, you sat in his presence, and he never spoke about anything spiritual. He didn't talk about any spiritual event at all, or thought. It was just sitting in his presence.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day he said he began to speak about something spiritual, and Hazrat Inayat Khan grabbed his pencil and his paper, and the man stopped.
Oh no.
He stopped cold, yeah, and he didn't say any more words, spiritual words. So it was like you listen to the teachings also and absorb on another level. It's like I know I took lots of notes. I had tons of notebooks, etc. But you can also absorb simply by just taking in. Okay.
Alima comes and points out things I've said. She does. Well, you
Does that
said
confuse you?
6 years ago. This is what you said. Okay.
That's because I finally understood 6 years later.
And then I went and changed. Yeah, right. Okay, now, see how consciousness has made a tremendous leap forward in the animal. Think of the very elaborate support system of the digestive system. I think about this all the time. Seriously, this is in my consciousness a lot of the time. Think of the very elaborate support system of the digestive system, the nervous system, the respiratory system, the circulation of the blood, and the brain, the tremendous intelligence of nature to have made it possible for intelligence to rise to the state of the animal, the state of the elephant, or the falcon, or the horse, or the deer, or the lion, or the dolphin. It's taken eons of time for that crystal to have become a plant, and for the plant to have become an animal. Then there's the need to manifest the splendor, but not just in form, in the skills, in the ability to survive, the ability to transform plants into flesh. The support system has become a very elaborate consciousness that has been able to leap forward. Dolphins and otters will play little pranks of humor. The elephants will express something of the power that moves the universe, and the falcon rides through the air, flies through the air, manifesting peace and freedom. So now, the divine qualities are beginning to come through. Now think that out of all of that tremendous evolutionary advance, you have emerged as a human being. And now, not only are you aware of the twinkling of the stars, but you can actually visualize them as luminaries, radiant and life-giving, supporting civilizations that might be even more advanced than ours, millions of light years away. I mean, you guys are certainly aware that that new telescope up there, that's even better than the Hubble, is beginning to discover all kinds of planets that are Earth-like. You know?
Yeah.
How cool is that? This is new. This is brand new.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
How
yeah.
does it recognize them?
Huh?
How does it recognize
Gaseous.
It's something about the. Initially, they could tell a planet was there because the sun actually moved. It would move from the gravity of the planet, slightly, right? But now they can actually see them because the telescopes are that good. And then see them, they can use these spectrometers to see if there's what they call an iron-oxygen mix is what it is, I think. So they're at least partially Earth-like.
And then all that information is sent back to Earth through, is it microwaves? So it's a
Radio waves. It's a radio.
Radio
Yeah.
waves. Satellite.
Yeah.
The satellite is out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So and the satellite. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's like
I'm
digital
going
eyes.
off.
You can look it up. Just go on the NASA site and look at it. They have all that
But
stuff.
those satellites are. Is it like one of those little airplanes that like
No,
a kid
darling,
has
they're
a
in
remote
orbit.
They're in
They're in
orbit.
Yeah. This is totally beyond anything you know about, isn't it?
That I've thought about.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
I'll explain it all to you. Well, some. Anyway, how cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
This, and this is, like within the last year.
Yeah.
Current knowledge is always limited by what we can actually see and measure.
Yeah, and it's very cool. It's so cool.
Science is limited.
So you can tell because they know that a sun or a planet has to be within a certain distance of the sun in order to have Earth-like conditions. Has to be.
Oh yeah.
Has to be within the water oxygen. I forget what it's called. There's a name for it, and then it depends on the quality of the sun, how bright it is. A sun that's very bright is obviously the Earth would have to be further out than we are, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. There's a bunch out there now. They're speculating that there's probably just 1 billion in our galaxy alone.
In our galaxy alone.
Our galaxy has what,
The Milky Way.
4 billion stars, I think. That's a lot, huh? Who counted?
Yeah. Who counted?
Okay, where am I at here?
We are not alone.
Twinkling of the stars, millions of light, even more advanced than millions. Somehow our minds, the mind of the animal, of the crystal, and the plant has now reached a point of extending beyond its limits, surpassing itself, reaching into the thinking of the universe, not just receiving the light of the stars, but having access into the thinking, the programming of the cells of our bodies, the programming of our brains. The brain discovers its own functioning, and now we begin to awaken, and this is what we are doing in meditation. We are awakening to all levels of the universe, not just the physical, and we are discovering the qualities that are coming through, like power and compassion. It wasn't to be found in the mineral, nor much of it in the plant, but then one begins to feel it in the animal. A little compassion sometimes, not much, but sometimes. And I'm sure you've all seen evidence of this with the higher animals like wolves and chimpanzees and so on. And you'll find humor in the animals, compassion and love, magnanimity, and more qualities. Okay? How you doing so far? That's pretty cool stuff, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As one evolves, more and more of the universe begins to come through. One becomes more and more cosmic. One attains a monumental stature in one's realization. One can see one's past, one can anticipate the future, and one can prepare for the future. One is deciphering the code of the universe because one is that code oneself. What is more, we are able to feel emotion that became the universe, that manifested as a flower or a crystal or a falcon or a deer. It's an emotion manifested as a being. And now, can you feel the emotion that has become your being? The divine emotion is a cosmic emotion. If only you could grasp the countenance of your being, which is a form. I mean a form without a frontier or a boundary, but it is an effort to express splendor without being sclerosed by a boundary or a profile, as in a face.
It's an effort to what?
To express splendor without being sclerosed, crystallized, by a boundary or a profile, as in a face.
In other words, identifying with what we think is ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what this lesson is giving you is the opportunity to understand the actual vastness of your being, while at the same time you're sitting there in a chair and you have your feet on the floor and you're picking up your cup and you're drinking some water and you're aware of the functions of your body, and maybe you're a little hungry and you're thinking about something you got to do tomorrow, and on and on and on it goes, right? That's your humanity, your physicality, your assumptions about yourself. And the reality is that, of course, you must do those things.
Yeah.
But you're more than that. So much more. And our task is to unveil that for ourselves without feeling some kind of, what word do I want? As if there's some kind of failure taking place because you don't remember it all the time. In other words, cut yourself some slack. Okay? Yeah, when you go through this material, it's like, oh my God, that's so hard. I'm not sure I can end, Or the other way is, oh, I understand all that, and you don't have to tell me anymore. Or whatever it is you're going through, right? What I'd like you to do is just to allow it to be what it is. You're not trying to create anything. You're not trying to let go of anything. You're just being yourself, understanding yourself in the process. Without, you don't have to force anything. It comes as it comes. Okay? You got anything to add to that?
No, you're doing beautifully.
Well, thank you. Okay. Now here's where it gets fun. Now, can you hoist yourself into the levels of your being? You can explore the world of metaphor. You'll find that new thoughts emerge spontaneously, prompted by emotion that you could project into a form, into a landscape. The landscape is just a sclerosis of these thoughts. It's not the same thing as random thoughts. It's thoughts that are provoked by the discovery of a cosmic emotion, like a composition. Okay, what's he talking about?
The creation of landscapes of the soul.
Well, revelation, right?
Revelation.
Yeah.
But revelation.
Sure, when you suddenly understand something that you didn't understand before. It was always there, it didn't just appear.
Insight? Could that be called insight?
Could be called insight, sure.
And he would always call it the aha moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just that wonderful moment when you just look at it and you go, wow, that's cool. Or whatever it might be, And suddenly a lot of disparate thoughts and emotions congeal and become a thing, where before they were merely random. They suddenly had meaning that you hadn't suspected.
And is that due to opening oneself to identifying and remembering more of our true being?
Maybe, but I'm not sure. It's not
Isn't it passive?
it's not a deliberate action.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's passive, isn't it?
It's passive, absolutely. It just happens. I mean, the action is like you're continually working on yourself. You do your meditations, and you get up in the morning and you look at the little room or place where you sit or to do your meditation. And I don't want to do that. I'd rather have coffee. But then you just you shake yourself and rattle your head and go and sit down and do it anyway, right? Day after day. And then there'll be days when you don't, and then you'll feel guilty and or then you'll get used to feeling guilty, and I don't. This is kind of how it works, isn't it?
Sometimes,
Yeah. So, what happens when you just do it, regardless?
Everything shifts.
Yeah. It's why tradition exists. Even though we kind of step outside tradition, you know, but it's a reason that tradition exists.
Excuse me, I have a slightly different thought on this here.
Okay.
Okay, just do it. Okay, so when you just do it, it can be like this rote thing that's meaningless, like saying the wazifa without any intention or without any feeling or without anything, and that's useless. But if you sit down actually with some kind of intent, there has to be something a little more in there to generate the aha moment. It's like it's just like a musician. If you play the scales, but if you have that artistry in you and you hit those notes, it's like Mercer talks about Paderewski's, hearing him when he again he had the same experience as someone else who was sitting in concert hall, and he heard Paderewski begin to play, just practicing, and it was stunned by the beauty of the music. So there is some kind of you bring something else to it when you sit down to just do it. It's more than just doing it. I think you can be passive in that state, but
yeah, I don't disagree. But how often in the morning when we're doing prayers, we do prayers together every morning.
Yeah.
Do you suddenly realize you're just saying them? Happens to me all the time. Oh.
And then you wake up from it. Yeah. You go, oh.
So that's the value in just doing it, because then you can wake up.
Maybe.
Rather than walking away from it.
Rather than walking away from it, yes.
Yeah.
You realize the connection there. It's like, okay. Because by doing it, it brings it to life.
Yeah. But make God a reality, And God will make you the truth. It's like there's something more in it than just, vain repetition.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
You're right. You get to be right.
Gee. An aha moment.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Alina, would you do me a favor and go put some fire into that soup? Thanks. Divine, where are we at here? Great splendor in nature, born out divine to manifest. The emotion of the soul is ecstasy, and it is prompted by an intuition that behind all this there is great splendor, and that you're born out of that divine nostalgia to manifest that splendor in as many ways as possible, and you are one of the ways.
Yay!
I'm going to read that again for Alima's benefit. The emotion of the soul is ecstasy, and it is prompted by an intuition, right? That behind all this, in other words, there's a suspicion on your part that there's something going on. You wouldn't be sitting here if that were not true, right? There's a suspicion on your part there's something going on that you need to find a way to access. Okay, there's great splendor in that you're born out of that divine nostalgia to manifest that splendor in as many ways as possible, and you are one of the ways. Isn't that cool? Okay. So you accept the divinity of your being and accept the beauty of your being, but do not be demure by that very misleading sense of false humility that is self-denigrating and self-defeating.
Say that again?
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's huge, right. Do not be demure by that very misleading sense of false humility that is self-denigrating and self-defeating. The I'm not good enough bit. God's too big, and I'm just a little puny worm. That whole bit. Right? In other words, remember what I have said to you a zillion times? Admit to who you are. There's no merit in it, but it's got to be somebody. Turns out it's you.
Don't be falsely
Humble.
falsely humble.
Right.
But I feel as though I can only get to that when I give up any idea that there's anything I can do about it.
Well, there is something you can do about it. What is it that you can do?
Stand aside.
No, you're actually doing action. You have to make action. Right? You're continually tuning into your intent.
That's an action.
Yeah. Yeah. When you stand, you just step back and become totally passive. Nothing's going to happen.
No, I don't mean that. I guess I mean recognizing that I am not doing this. I'm tapping into the doing of it.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a tricky place because we're talking about, is it the ego doing it or is it
That, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I
that's what I
understand.
Yeah, so there's a surrender
Yes.
to the grace
Yes.
that is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's the ego that's saying I'm not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry that you're not good enough.
Thank you for that.
You're being an otter right now.
Okay, you have already realized that what a privilege it is to be human and to be evolving as a human towards the next world into awakening. So it is awakening to the divinity of one's being, as Piro Murshid says. That's the awakening to what I call that investiture in which the flower was held, but the flower was so limited in its means of manifesting this investiture, this legacy. Okay? In other words, the flower expressed itself as best as it could within the limitations that it was presented with. But we have incomparably larger means, almost unending means of giving vent to that splendor invested in our beings by our high attunement, by our ability of our intelligence to beat its records. And by being aware of in a way, the constant need of human beings to beat records is another example of that very experience that he's talking about. You know, athletes.
To push through.
Pushing as hard as they can. They want to go, a nanosecond faster. And they do. By being aware of the divine nostalgia that spurs us into becoming the fulfillment of the divine purpose. I love that word nostalgia because it just encompasses so many possibilities.
In Portuguese, it's saudades.
Which is?
It's almost like divine nostalgia. It's nostalgia for that which could be, as opposed to that which was.
Oh, wonderful.
Saudades.
I like it. So instead of thinking of yourself as a person, think of yourself as the fulfillment of divine purpose. Okay, how's that working for you?
Well, we'll give us a moment with that. Okay, give us a little time, huh?
Say it again. Will you say it again?
Instead of thinking of yourself as a person, think of yourself as the fulfillment of divine purpose. Okay. Or, let's say you are one of the stages moving towards that fulfillment. Just like Leonardo da Vinci would make different sketches before making the final picture. So think of yourself, and that's most of the artists that I know did that very thing. So think of yourself in your present condition as one of the sketches leading up to the perfect picture whereby God finds fulfillment of his or her being. You're a sketch. That's kind of cool. Our friend that did, well, all of these artists, they all did the same thing. But the friend that did that painting right there, right, and the nuns, the dancing nuns, that's exactly what he did. He'd sit at his coffee table at night, watching TV and sketching, making sketches. I've seen that sketch, and he just, work out what it is he wanted to do, and then he'd go to his studio and he'd do the bigger piece.
And was that the bigger piece?
Yeah. Yeah, there's like a series of them. We only could afford one.
Yeah.
So, in a way, he was doing exactly what Pure Light is describing, that God does with us. Right?
Doing the sketches, trying to get to the...
You guys see that there's another aspect of that?
You mean besides sketches?
Yeah.
There's the thought before it. There's the thought behind it.
And what else?
The thought that I have been contemplating over the past few weeks has been about archetypes.
Okay.
And it's some kind of planning of a structure of something that will be coming forth. I haven't really worked it all out. It's kind of new because I really don't know. I've never really thought about archetypes before.
Okay. So there's something going on inside of you, and your brain is trying to sort through it. Right? Would that be accurate?
It's not just personal. It's everything has some kind of beginning with some kind of archetypal structure.
Something is emerging. No?
Or
Maybe I didn't mean to put words in your
I
mouth.
think there's always something emerging,
Yeah.
so that's always a true statement as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know the answer.
well, you're going to have to come back to class and see a 10-page essay.
So other aspects of this sketching thing, meaning how does the whole thing of sitting down and sketching until almost sketching randomly until the right combination of whatever it is, lines or forms or colors come into place. And it's kind of like the dress rehearsal in our lives. Sometimes there's an intention behind how we live, and we work through these things until the form that matches the intention comes through as our life.
There's another aspect. Okay, because what you're saying is some kind of preconceived outcome. It's already established. The outcome exists.
Yeah, it may not be preconceived. It's sensed rather than preconceived.
Okay.
It's a sensing.
So there's something you can feel is available, right?
Yeah. Maybe.
Okay. Now, what if it were to be that what is taking place is also subject to creativity? Oh.
Subject to what creativity?
Yours.
Our own creativity.
Co-creation.
Yeah.
The co-creation thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So your being is actually not only the fulfillment of divine intent, but it's also participating in the creative act of divine self-discovery. Because we don't, it's like, do you remember me saying this? At one time I gave this lecture to this group of people, and I said that, even God doesn't know how it's going to turn out. Oh my gosh.
What?
That was a hard thing for them to absorb. It was fun to watch. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you can only get into the crystal by imagining what it would be like to be the crystal, or the flower by imagining what it would be like to be a flower or an animal. You can only get into the feeling of the universe by experiencing what it's like to be the universe. That is, by discovering yourself in the universe as the universe. And that was the great moment when Abu Yashid Bastami, the great Sufi dervish, said, "How great is my glory." Because the word me does not mean the individual anymore, and therefore one can say that. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean the personal self anymore. One becomes cosmic. Okay, you cosmic beings.
We need a break, don't we?
We're going to take a break. First, we're going to do noon prayers.
Is that clock right? Did you change
That
it?
clock is not right. That clock is an hour ahead of what it ought to be. Because I
So
haven't
it's
changed
maybe
anything.
like 11:30?
Yes, it's 11:37. And it'll be 11:45 by the time we're done with prayers, and we'll have done almost 2 hours, and then we'll have lunch and like that. Our normal routine. Okay?
Whatever you say.
See? I like it when you say things like that.
That's why I do it from dark to dark. I like pleasing you.
Okay. Here we go.
Toward the one.
The perfection
Of
of
love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls, who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance.
Most gracious
Lord, Master, Messiah, and Savior of humanity, we greet Thee with all humility. Thou art the first cause and the last effect, the divine light and the Spirit of guidance, Alpha and Omega. Thy light is in all forms, Thy love in all beings, in a loving mother, in a kind father, in an innocent child, in a helpful friend, in an inspiring teacher. Allow us to recognize Thee in all Thy holy names and forms, as Rama, as Krishna, as Shiva, as Buddha. Let us know Thee as Abraham, as Solomon, as Zarathustra, as Moses, as Jesus, as Muhammad, and in many other names and forms, known and unknown to the world. We adore Thy past. Thy presence deeply enlightens our being, and we look for Thy blessing in the future. As the messenger, Christ, Nabi, the Rasul of God, Thou whose heart constantly reaches upward, Thou comest on earth with a message as a dove from above when Dharma decays, and speakest the word that is put into Thy mouth, as the light filleth the crescent moon. May the star of the divine light shining in Thy heart be reflected in the hearts of Thy devotees. May the message of God reach far and wide, illuminating and making the whole of humanity as one single family in the parenthood of God. Pour upon us Thy love and Thy light. 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 A torch in the darkness, a staff during my weakness, a rock in the weariness of life. Thou, my Master, makest earth a paradise. Thy thought giveth me unearthly joy. Thy light illuminateth my life's path. Thy words inspire me with divine wisdom. I follow in thy footsteps, which lead me to the eternal goal. Comforter of the broken-hearted, support of those in need, friend of the lovers of truth, blessed Master, thou art the prophet of God. O thou, who art the maker, molder, and builder of the universe, build with thine own hands the universal, our temple for thy divine message of love, harmony, and beauty. I ask,
Beloved
Lord, Almighty God, through the rays of the sun, through the waves of the air, through the all-pervading life in space, purify and revivify me, and I pray, heal my body, heart, and soul. Amen.
Amen. Okay, let's just take a few moments to settle from all of the thinking you've been doing for the past hour and a half.
That's too much thinking.
Thinking will get you more stinking than drinking.
But the feel is for real.
That's right.
Joe Miller, right?
You ever heard that?
But, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that was that. Yes. Yeah. Kiss. Like the kiss method. Keep it simple, silly.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Oh, that's
The
guy
engineer's
from
motto. Kiss.
Kiss, yeah,
Yeah, keep it simple, stupid.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what that hypnotist uses.
Kiss?
Kiss, yeah. What's his name?
I don't know.
He's quite one. He was the one that he worked with children, and he had one little kid who was.
Don Martin?
No, it wasn't Don Martin. It was somebody else. And he had one little kid
You're
who.
being recorded, you know.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay. You could turn it off until we begin.
We did begin. So imagine, if you will, that all of this that we're doing is just a way to keep your mind interested, and none of it is really necessary. what's most critical is simply being. On the other hand, we like to know the process and the structure, and we'd like to know that whatever it is that we're doing actually has some kind of meaning, wouldn't we? We want to know that. that there's a goal that is useful and attainable and measurable. So that's what we're going to work on this afternoon. This is one of Pir Vilayat's metaphysical lectures. So if you have a question, of course, you can always stop me. Harmonic convergence is one moment among different conjunctions, points of resonance in the history of the planet. The Mayan calendar ends in the year 2012, which is 25 years from now. At this moment, now here's the cool part. Okay, all of that nonsense about the Mayan calendar, This is what he has to say about it. At this moment, there is what they call a break in the beam. What it means is that the predictable in the minds of the Mayans will be ending at that time, and after that there will be difficulty in forecasting because there will be much more free will than ever before. Consequently, it makes predictability much more difficult. In fact, eventually impossible. Isn't that a little different from what people were saying? What is it they were saying? The world was coming to an end.
That's right.
There would be an abrupt change.
Right, and what else were they saying?
The people were going to go on to different levels, and a whole bunch of other people were going to be wiped out. Populations were going to be wiped out.
All in the one moment, in December 21st, 2012. I think it was December 21st, wasn't it? Something like that, right? Or November 21st?
12, 12, 12, or...
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway.
So, predictability.
Based on what he said, if people felt that, but didn't quite know how to define it, what do you suppose it means?
If people felt what?
That the predictability was going to become less.
Could you repeat your question, Karen?
Based on what Pir Vilayat said.
Yeah.
That predictability was going to become more and more difficult to experience. And people were sensing that but didn't know what it meant. Or even weren't able to necessarily define it. What do you suppose it means?
Well, I'm struggling with knowing what the Mayan calendar was and knowing that it really wasn't a moment in time of any importance. But if I put that aside and I connect to what his statement is, isn't that what we're experiencing in terms of the book Future Shock? There is no predictability. Life is changing at a faster and faster pace with each passing moment and coming at us faster than we can possibly absorb and adapt to. Technology, communications, all of that. So that's how I hear.
The latest iPad.
Yeah, the latest iPad, yeah. Which is only a half a pound lighter, so I might wait till they go down a little or till they make other improvements. But, so that's how I hear it. What do I think of as predictability? Okay, well that's the future shock thing. That change is happening faster faster, and it's hard for the human psyche and mind to adapt to that. That's what I think.
It also gives us a greater range of possibilities.
Yes,
No.
but you understand that for most people, a great range of possibility is
It's
not
scary.
all that
It's
much
scary.
fun.
It's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's fear.
You want predictability.
I've
You want to know that tomorrow is going to be pretty much the same as today, without any kind of
People like and strive for a sense of security.
yeah.
And so
Yeah, and
I
sameness.
am feeling this on the human level. So we're just talking about human interactions right
Yeah.
now. So the human interactions that I'm feeling is a lot of anxiety going on. People not knowing what to do, how to feel safe.
Yeah.
I
You just raised your hand
can
too.
attest that.
That's really good. I like this class.
We all participate.
I've been feeling that anxiety, but I also lived in what I think is sort of unpredictable.
Circumstances.
Yeah, my format of work and means of support is very unpredictable and has been for many years. It's just that it seems like it's also shifting now too,
Okay.
to where it's just like faith on a wing.
Okay.
So I think it's a combination of the acceleration of change, and also that as individuals we all reach a tipping point of being able to just go with the flow. And how do we shift that tipping point?
I think it's also that not only are the events of the world happening more quickly and changes are happening via technology, etc. The weather, we've had a lot of storms, etc., that are very dangerous and so on. But also that our consciousness has shifted. Okay? So that's why I feel greater possibilities, hopefulness.
Well, yeah, but you're a Sufi.
So we all are.
Well, yeah.
Well, anyway, that's just my viewpoint.
That's fine. But I was going to point out that what is it that a mystic is going to experience in this period?
Excitement
Yeah.
at the potential.
And this is just something that I was thinking about a couple of days ago, is like, how will the experience shift as there are more mystics participating in the world?
I don't know. We'll have to see.
I don't know. It was a thought that I hadn't really thought about before, that as there are more people who are more aware and wanting to do positive things to help support others, how that might shift the world, and particularly in these times where as events happen, everyone can know about it because our communications have become global in real time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I also think there's a crisis of trust.
Trust, huh?
Trust in communications, for instance. I mean, there was a time when Walter Cronkite said it was so, but today, I mean, I don't. The old
nothing's
Chinese
better.
saying, "Believe nothing that you hear, and only half of what you see." I don't believe most of what I see until I confirm it, because I think.
And even then, you're confirming through your filters.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, of course, and then there's that as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of information availability and reactivity, anybody can say anything to make it true.
And do.
But I think
They
that there
do.
was a time when we believed the newscast. We believed the medical world. We believed, and today, I think there's a crisis of trust or faith or whatever.
Good point.
Or an authority to turn to.
Yeah. Good. Oh, absolutely.
Any kind of a
Crisis of trust of authority.
mentor, that isn't corrupt,
Yeah.
because we don't have much of that.
So
in
how does
any
this
governments or
Well, as
Yeah, I
you
mean, I-
say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. I don't look at our government as totally corrupt, but I hear a lot of people will talk and just corporations, governments, about how corrupt so many governments are, including ours. So, what is that?
And how does the mystic then respond to that crisis of
That's
trust?
something you're going to have to figure out.
Well, come on.
Well, as an one evil man can change the world, as you know from Hitler or Stalin or Lenin, and one man or woman of very spiritual and positive stature like Gandhi or Jesus, or
More.
it can change the world also. So if you have multiple mystics here, it can also change the world again.
Well, let's see, shall we?
Yes, let's see. Let's take a
In the Pythagorean mathematics, an example of harmonic convergence would be the resonance of the chord of a violin or a harp. There are certain mathematical points or proportions of that chord, nodes, in which, when the chord resonates, it fluctuates from its middle point, but at the point of those nodes it remains stationary. What one could say, if you think of I don't even know who this is, Prigogny's theory, is that all creativity is a fluctuation from a position of rest. It is like a return to headquarters. If you are improvising and you make variations and you go a little too far from the theme, then perhaps the person who is leading you will say, back to headquarters. I've said that a few times now that I think about it. Get back to it. Because I have Marines that they'll get a hold of an idea and off they go. And what did Pierre Vilayet call that? The Stravinsky syndrome? Isn't that what he said?
Going off at a tangent.
Yeah. Right, because Stravinsky went off on these looking for these musical purities, and it annoyed Pierre Vilayet. Okay. Refer back to your center. Get centered again. And I've said that many times. I've said it to each one of you probably. Get centered. Remember who you are. Settle down. Because we tend to, just exactly as he said, go off on a tangent. Now, how do you do that?
Yeah, how do you remember who you are?
Recenter. There's a very good method. It's not complicated at all. It's just in the breath, and that is when you're inhaling in the solar plexus, which is the void. We did it last time. This is the space, the infinite space, and then you're exhaling out the heart, which is your radiance, the way that your being exhibits itself. Right. So as you're inhaling, you're concentrating on the void in the solar plexus. And then as you exhale, you concentrate on the heart, and you radiate your joy or your expression of self. A very simple exercise.
Concentrate on the joy of expression.
Yeah.
From the heart.
Expression of self. Your pure self, the golden light of you.
Radiance.
Yeah, radiance is a good word. And you'll notice that you're doing two things. One, you're focusing on centers in your body that represent these two ways of being that exist within you, you're also paying attention to the rhythm of your breath, which automatically slows you down.
When you're doing this breath, can you do that in accordance with the heartbeat?
Sure, if you want, whatever's comfortable for you. I think most people actually automatically do that. You don't even know you're doing it. You'll automatically get into rhythm with your own internal or rhythm of your organs. It's when you feel out of balance that your breath is not in rhythm with the rhythm of your organs.
He talks about that in book 4.
Yeah, in healing, yeah. It's true in Chinese medicine too, I think. Can you see how that kind of just settles everything down? Really fast. It's not... There doesn't have to be some kind of, magnanimous experience. You can do something very simple.
But it's very disquieting to other people.
That's not your problem.
Right. But I recently got involved with our neighborhood association, and I'm just in a phase of amusement and watching their response to me, even if I don't say anything. Like, that there's some people are comforted by it, and some people are frustrated by it.
It's not your problem.
No, I know. But it's amusing.
Could you give an example?
No.
No.
We're going to move along. We can go into that later, but we do want to get through this material. In the music of Bach, for example, at moments when the two themes are very free, like two eagles flying in the sky, listening to each other, but still, it's not always evident that they're not conforming to each other, back again. That's a moment of convergence. It's a moment when we have to be together. We have to be conscious of our togetherness. For instance, in Ravel's Bolero, that's the best example of that. Those two themes that are very different, Da 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 da. That's one theme, and the other theme is very mental. Da, 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 da. And there are moments of silence in that piece where everything comes together. If you listen to the piece, you'll hear that there are moments where there's no sound. And you can just feel the cohesion of the two different themes. It was Zarifa that taught me that. Yeah. Okay. Our freedom has to be constrained in the interest of the commonality between us. It is a moment when we feel our common legacy as denizens of planet Earth, a moment when we see the absolute incongruity of war. We underplay our differences and acknowledge our commonality of belonging to one family. So you probably felt that in some way or other at times, and then right after feeling it, you're wondering, what am I thinking? There's no commonality here. Look at these crazy people. But in fact, there is. In this case, the harmonic convergence has implications for planet Earth, and it has implications beyond it. For the planet, it marks the time when the consciousness of humanity begins to become aware of the oneness behind all of the different religions. That's convergence. That's the teaching of the message of Pure Murshid, Hazrat Inayat Khan. We are able even to see how, as Murshid says, unity is not uniformity. There's a tremendous difference between them, and yet somehow one can see the unity within that diversity. Of course, it applies at all levels, industry, art, in every way. We feel that the planetary reality is something that is emerging out of the different nations and civilizations. Do you feel that now?
just so much war.
Or do you feel that there's
It feels like there's a lot of chaos coming out of a lot of different civilizations. And
okay?
that's,
Well, we had things like the European Union happen not so long ago, where we had all these different countries that had their own identity that they held on to, and that has come together in a group. In Africa, there are conferences going on trying to figure out a way to create some kind of union for all of the different states in Africa. So there is a desire for a coming together that I see.
So both things are happening at the same time.
yeah,
I think that the human experience tends to see and push for unity that does not that suppresses diversity, or that homogenizes it, and I think that's very different from this idea.
Yeah,
of
okay.
unity.
That's true what you said, but what happens? Just look at it historically. What happens?
Historically, much is lost of diversity.
How about that? There's always a struggle against that very.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Of course.
Has to be
against diversity.
against
Against
the homogeneity.
Yeah.
Right. There's always something or someone or some group of someones that pushes against it. You know, the hippie movement of the 60s and 70s. That's what that was.
So it's almost as though the human mind, the human experience, is mistaken in the concept of unity.
Yeah, but it misunderstands exactly. Right. It's not uniformity, just as Merchant says. Exactly. Okay.
Well, that's a huge thing where in any group, whether it be a family or any larger organization, the acceptance of differences.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we go back to inclusion versus exclusion consciousness.
So what are you doing? You know what?
I am really working very hard on inclusive feelings, even the accepting of things that used to repulse me.
Oh, good. Because what I hear a lot from people is that sometimes I'll correct it and sometimes I'll just let them go. Is look how cool we are and look at how kind of sad all the rest of those guys are.
Doing the other thing.
Yeah, whatever it is they're doing.
We
you know.
and them.
Yeah, and then crazy and us and them kind of thing, right? And that's not what we're about.
Right, and it's not an easy. I'm finding it's not an easy road to go.
So, if it were easy, anybody could do it.
Okay. Yeah, but the accepting of the inclusiveness of things that may appear hurtful or detrimental.
They are in fact hurtful. Yeah. Yeah, so can you accept the existence of drones? I mean, the ones with missiles attached to them. Not all drones are bad.
Right. So to accept it and to also be aware, but not live in the fear.
Well, you're not the target of a drone, are you?
I don't know.
No, I don't think so. Probably not true.
One never knows.
Someone's going to launch
It's going
a missile.
right to a Lingus house. Oh my.
Yeah.
Blow up your condo.
You
It's not
just
gonna-
never know. Revenge of my ex-landlord.
So a drone aimed at him would be okay.
Oh, she's already moved out. I see.
Well,
Okay. Sorry.
you know, it's important to be comfortable with, which is what you're basically saying, to be comfortable with these alternative ways of seeing things. Let's say.
Right.
Which are brought about by
Cultural pressures. you know, in the need to feel right.
Fear.
I just had the same guy, the same young man that I had I have about once a month he gets a hold of me and we have this conversation on Facebook back and forth. And he like uses me to check on what's going on in his head, right? And it was the very same conversation we had, you know, that he's quite sure that this or that is the correct way to do things. And I pointed out that's not necessarily true. You don't know what someone else's path is. You can't possibly know. You can't.
Yeah.
You can. You have trouble with your own path, much less worried about someone else, right? So, okay, we can read in it the same meanings as the word used by Dr. David Bohm, enfolding.
Enfolding?
En.
Enfolding.
Enfolding. For example, if you drop gravel on the surface of a lake, each little bit of gravel is going to cause an eddy. But these eddies form together what one calls a wave interference pattern. So one reality is created out of these many different sub-realities. That's convergence, which is exactly what you're talking about, right? Acceptance, in fact. And each one of us as a human being is, in a sense, a convergence of the universe at all levels. The physical reality of the universe, the psychic level, at every level of our being, we are like the wave that represents the convergence of the whole sea, because it's the whole sea that emerges as each wave. That's when we become aware of the bounty that construes together in our being. Did you get all that? You look puzzled.
Yeah, I got up until the wave.
Okay.
And
Just repeat that set.
Or I'll just, yeah, all right.
Okay.
Each one of us as a human being is, in a sense, a convergence of the universe at all levels. The physical reality of the universe, the psychic level, at every level of our being, we are like the wave that represents the convergence of the whole sea, because it's the whole sea that emerges as each wave. That's when we become aware of the bounty that construes together in our being. When you observe a wave, you observe it as an individual thing, as a thing that has identity. But the whole ocean has to adjust to that wave. Has to. Can't not. The whole world has to adjust to any individual wave. Okay?
yeah,
Does that make sense to you?
yeah.
Okay, that's what happens. It's a minor adjustment as far as the whole ocean is concerned, but still, there must be.
Right. And if that wave is out of sync,
Can't be out of sync.
Can't be out of sync, right?
It's not
No.
possible.
Well, you can have a monster wave, which you might call out of sync, but it's still the whole ocean going into that wave.
I think the out of
Right.
sync is a mental judgment.
Good for you. Yeah.
Yeah. But this whole idea, I mean, it's just as I listened to you speak this and as I read it, it gave me a wonderful sense of belonging to the whole universe, to being part of it, even if my consciousness did not feel the whole universe, but for seconds, you know. But it gave me a whole sense of not being separate, but being as one. It was helpful, you know.
Exactly. So that you can recognize that with every action on your part, the whole universe must adjust.
Not only every action, but also every thought.
Every thought, every yeah, exactly.
There's
So
one
the
law of
power-
reciprocity.
Huh?
There's one law, the law of reciprocity.
Yep, exactly.
So your statement earlier about how many mystics...
Now that makes sense to you, huh?
Right, and the thoughts as
Right.
being
Focus
forms
on
that affect not just this planet, but the whole universe itself. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a thought, huh?
It's something that I'd like to know.
Okay. Got all that? Everybody all clear?
What?
Profound.
Oh, I don't know. I can't put a word to it.
Excuse me.
Okay, first of all, there's the word convergence. Rays of light converge through a lens. There's the word confluence. Rivers start coming together, as in Allahabad in India, to form one river. A confluence, perhaps a more intimate intermeshing. Or where the Ohio joins the Mississippi, for instance. Same thing. Then there's the word congruence, which means that a new meaningfulness arises out of the interfacing, interaction, and intermeshing of different ideas. Sometimes creativity is just that, the way that one is able to process a lot of thoughts, but in a way that has never been thought of before. In innovative thought, there is hope for the future. The thinking of the universe goes through a breakthrough into new horizons, which is another way of talking about what we were talking about this morning, right? Okay, so.
You mean the drawings and sketches, and then the
Yeah, and then the actual piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're a sketch. I kind of like that.
Little beginnings.
So, if the universe is processing a lot of thought in order to create a confluence out of which arises an innovative expression of divine intent, wherein does your responsibility to be part of this intermeshing occur? Is that a good question?
That's the big question.
Yeah. First of all, I imagine the first step is going back to home base, returning to what was the term you used?
Turn the center. Your center.
The center, and in that, remembering.
Yeah. And what is that?
That your consciousness turns toward that where everything is congruent and flows together.
Yeah, we have a pretty cool practice for that.
Wahabo?
No, zikr.
Zikr. Shall we do zikr now?
We can do some zikr now. I'd like to do it in a way that is just, meaningful internally, rather than. So if you think of this practice, doing the zikr, as a confluence of psychic energies that is enabling your being to participate, as opposed to some other idea that you may have. Just try that as a concentration. Is that helpful? What I just said?
Psychic energies, did you say?
Is that what
Say
I
it
said?
again, whatever it was you said. I'm out of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, if we do the practice rather slowly, see if you can see it as a confluence of energies that allows you to participate, rather than some transformative experience that enables your enlightenment or unfolding.
Okay.
Okay? In other words, it's participatory in the action of the universe rather than
Right.
some individual experience. Okay? Does that make sense?
Rather than trying to make something happen.
Yeah, rather than trying to make something happen. Yeah, exactly. Okay? So, kind of.
Noticing that it already is.
Just, relatively short. And pretty slow. Like this. La. 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 La So did that concentration change the zikr in any way for you? Or is it the same?
So I had this moment of noticing that when I would often think of the who as the end of a cycle, it became the beginning of the cycle.
Oh, cool. In other words, there was a continuation.
The who became the divine expression in all, as opposed to starting with clear the all and,
Great. Okay. We want to continually examine, don't we?
What our experiences in the figure.
Yeah, in anything actually.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, this is a good moment for a little short break, eh?
Could you repeat the question again, the one from before the zikr?
No. I have no idea what I said. What did I say?
can you explain
Which question?
Zikr?
What
No, before the zikr.
what
The
I-
big question. The big question.
What is your responsibility?
What is our
there?
responsibility?
Yeah. How do we participate in this?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. In
All
this confluence.
Confluence, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it how do we find out who we are? Was that the beginning?
Well, that's another aspect.
Yeah.
How do you what are you participating? Because we tend to get very focused on our own reality, don't we?
Yeah.
And what we're doing, and we lose sight of the fact that we're part of an overall expression of divine intent. Okay, so let's take a little break. So during the break, Majida was reminding me of something that I'd completely forgotten. When he gave this lecture, there were a lot of people who were very worried about the harmonic convergence, which was, I think, 4 or 5 planets in alignment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And people were concerned about it, and then there was also some subliminal concerns about
And the Mayan calendar.
the Mayan calendar, and they hadn't started worrying about Y2K yet. That was in the future. So this whole lecture was explaining to people what was really going on, as opposed to all of the rumors flying about from lesser individuals, I suppose you could say. Or people that just love the idea that there's going to be some drama unfolding. I know I've told you this story before, but I'll tell it again.
I'll be right back. Go ahead, tell me.
So it's on the recording, actually. Majida and I were scheduled to do the universal worship on January 2nd, 2000 at the abode.
Okay.
I mean, you'll remember we used to go to the abode like every 2 months until we got too far away to do that. So we go up to the abode. This is after Y2K, right? And nothing happened. And there were some people there that I'd known, and I went, they were from far away. What are you doing here? I packed up all my stuff and I came here because I knew it was going to be horrible.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so one particular person that I have in mind And I looked at him and I realized he was like super depressed. And I said, "You're really upset that nothing happened, aren't you?" Yeah, I was, because he'd done all of this effort to pack his stuff and go to the abode, and then nothing happened.
Who was the charismatic leader that predicted the end of time back
Last
in
year.
the 50s? Back in the 50s,
Oh.
people sold their homes and went up into the mountains and waited, and then nothing happened. I forget
I
who
don't
that
remember.
was.
Well, it happened recently.
And that religious
With the
whatever group still exists. Last year.
Yeah, well, I have to recalculate.
12, 12, 12.
So what you want to do is to recognize that when we're working on something that's extremely subtle, others will have similar awareness, but they won't be quite as subtle. Matter of fact, they'll be pretty gross about it.
Well, they'll go into fear.
Yeah. And the basic principle of our current cultures is the grosser principle is disappointment, right? It's important to continually remember that's what you're, and we end up becoming part of it. We end up becoming subject to that energetic disposition, right?
Of disappointment,
Yeah,
of the way things are going.
yeah. How often gosh, I heard you guys talking earlier when I was just before I went to take my nap about Obamacare and whether or not it was going to be okay and all that stuff, right? You know what it is? It's the next step in the social experiment.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it is.
It's exactly what Social Security and Medicare were.
Yeah.
It's going through the same kinds of painful gyrations of
Yeah, it's the next step. That's all.
rebalancing.
Mhm.
And does it have to be painful?
Well, that's because that's the way we create it.
That's,
No, it doesn't have to
That's
be.
the whole disappointment.
Yeah, you're absolutely
mindset.
convinced that there's going to be disappointment. That's what's happening, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Again, fear of going out of your comfort zone.
Fear of change.
Yeah.
Right. And an inability to recognize that you are one of the waves of the whole ocean. That what you do does in fact affect everyone else. Though that the other way that you put it is that statement of Chang Tzu's. I would dream that I was a butterfly.
Why was I with butterfly?
Yeah, and I woke up and I couldn't decide. You know this one?
No.
I dreamed I was a butterfly, and when I awoke, I couldn't decide if I was a man dreaming I was a butterfly or a butterfly dreaming I was a man. I was, from, was 1000 BC or something. Where did he live?
Chinese
Yeah,
guy.
yeah. In one of the successors to Lao Tzu. So, I have his book somewhere. I know I have it.
Early mystic.
Yeah, oh yeah. Okay, let's see where we're at here. Thinking of the universe goes through a breakthrough into new horizons. In its supra-terrestrial dimension, the meaning of convergence lies in the evolutionary process. Now let's just think about the lovely reference in a poem, the fluttering of a flower in resonance with the trembling of a star. Now that's a beautiful thought. What does a flower know of the stars? Then, as evolution advances, we human beings are able now even to start exploring the stars. Not only at the physical level, but by doing exactly what Shahabuddin Suhrawardi was teaching, by getting ourselves into the consciousness of the stars. I'm actually reading his book now, Shahabuddin, Philosophy of Illumination. I recommend it if you want to dig into this stuff. This practice develops a whole new dimension in our evolutionary process, that the eye of the human being should be able to grasp a light that has been cast forth from a star that has disappeared many hundreds of thousands of years ago is one of the most amazing things. I mean, do you ever think of that? These stars that are billions of light years away, you see their illumination. You actually stand outside and look up and you see that light.
Yeah.
And it left the star 1 billion years ago.
And that star might not even exist anymore.
Might not even exist now, exactly. Yeah.
How
Or-
does that happen?
the photons keep moving. They don't
light,
stop.
light travels.
You remember how empirical light is continually accentuating the reality that your aura has no boundary. It's
And
the other way around. You know, your illumination extends into the universe as far as you can imagine. The converse is true as well. And what did I see on the internet the other day that scientists believe or astronomers believe they've discovered the oldest known galaxy?
The what?
It's like
Oh, really?
it's like
I
7
missed that.
billion light years away. You know, the oldest known. And they're observing it, and it is completely different from galaxies. You know,
Excuse me again. I'm sorry.
it's so that's very cool.
Oldest known galaxy.
As far as they know, I mean, you could keep
Good.
pushing it out. Because if you're observing the illumination of an object that is 7 billion light years away or 15 billion light years away, that means that light left that object 15 billion years ago, at the beginnings of the universe.
That the light left the object,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
and the object is still there.
not
No,
necessarily.
not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily.
But the light's still there.
Yeah.
Because it's moving. It took 15 billion years to move from there to here. It's very far away.
Isn't that amazing?
Okay, now if you can calculate it, it's 186,000 miles per second. How many seconds are there in a year? Multiply that times 15 billion, and you've got the distance.
Still trying to get miles per gallon in my
Or miles to
Okay. Okay. Here where we at. That we should be able to supercharge our consciousness to such an extent that it is able to enter into the consciousness of beings like Buddha or Christ. And in addition to that we should be able to enter the consciousness of Prince Hirash, who is the archangel of the sun, and eventually into the consciousness of the galaxy and then the universe. That is the greatest feat. So you can do that. We've done that exercise, many times. So it's something that, and each time you'll notice that each time it's slightly different. It's a little more refined, a little closer to what you might perceive as something truthful, because that's what we're always seeking when we do a meditation, at least in part, is we're seeking something truthful, something that resonates within us as true, right? And you can feel it when it's not quite there. And then you got a little more work to do. And then there will be those moments when it just feels absolutely genuine. Okay? That's what we're working on. It represents the evolutionary process of the human being beyond the personal vantage point of the individual into what is called the divine consciousness, because that is exactly what is meant by divine consciousness. Okay, what did he just say? This is the test. I'm going to score
Can you
you.
read it again?
You get brownie points or something. Do people give out brownie
Read
points?
it again.
M&M's.
Okay, I'm going to start from the top. The eye of the human being should be able to grasp a light that has been cast forth from a star that has disappeared many hundreds of thousands of light years ago. Is one of the most amazing things that we should be able to supercharge our consciousness to such an extent that it is able to enter into the consciousness of beings like Buddha or Christ. In addition to that we should be able to enter the consciousness of Prince Hirash, who is the archangel of the sun, and eventually into the consciousness of the galaxy and then the universe. That is the greatest feat. It represents the evolutionary process of the human being beyond the personal vantage point of the individual into what is called the divine consciousness, because that is exactly what is meant by divine consciousness. Okay, so what did he just say? In your own words.
Complete dissolving of the self into the one.
Yeah, but what's he saying?
That you're
That we should be able
identifying
to
with
do
the
that.
light and energy and life of the universe. And I guess by being able to participate in that, we would be participating in the creation of the universe.
Turn it on its head. Flip it around.
That the universe is speaking, can
Express itself through you.
Yeah.
How about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
There you go. That's what's the important thing, I think. That you are, in fact, an expression, which is where we started this morning.
Mm-hmm.
You are an expression of divine consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
As far-fetched as that may seem at some moments in your life. You know? It certainly seems far-fetched to me sometimes. Okay, in meditation, we learn to get literally into the consciousness of the universe as a being, instead of interposing a concept of God between ourselves and that consciousness. It starts by realizing that the plants are beings, the minerals and atoms are beings. There is nothing in the universe that is not beings, and therefore there is a conscious counterpart of the somatic aspect of nature, of matter, which has been ignored during the last century, and we are just beginning to realize that today under what is called ecology. This represents progress in our conscience, in our acceptance of our co-responsibility for what is happening in our universe.
Like destroying rainforests or eliminating species, or are those things
That we are aware of it and actually pay attention and try to do something about it.
That's a very confusing thought to me, that whole sentence that he had just there.
Really? Why is it confusing?
I don't know why it's confused. I mean, if I knew
If
why
you
it
knew,
was
it wouldn't be confusing, right? Yeah, okay.
Right. If I knew, you know.
Okay, there's another way to put it that occurred to me as I was reading it, and that is that all things, in order, one of Ibn Arabi's statements, that all things, in order to exist, must be imbued with spirit. If there is not spirit, there is not being. It can't exist.
Right.
So spirit must be within all things, which is the same as saying that we are all things are beings. You know, all atoms are beings.
Yes.
They are in
thought.
fact spirit, or
Yes.
imbued with spirit. Okay, does that help?
Yeah, well, I got that from the previous sentence.
Oh, okay. Then what was the confusion?
I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll read the second half. There's nothing in the universe that is not beings, and therefore there is a conscious counterpart of the somatic aspect of nature, which has been ignored during the last century.
The spiritual counterpart.
The consciousness.
the
Yeah.
somatic?
The consciousness.
The somatic counterpart?
Yes, the somatic counterpart would be
Spirit.
the spirit.
Yeah.
Spiritual. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
because in the West we tend, because of the secular structure of our culture, we tend to ignore that aspect and just assume that we can dominate whatever it is that we're dealing with. You know, because we're more powerful than whatever it may be.
Well, talking about the somatic aspect of the counterpart, doesn't that say feelings?
Yeah.
Doesn't that mean feelings?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you feel the
Feelings or spirit. Yeah.
the pain of that the world is experiencing, or that all right, just take fracking. You know, when you do that, the world, the land that's being fracked responds. It doesn't like it. And what's it do? It sends back, nasty chemicals. Well,
I thought it was the chemicals they were putting in.
It is.
other stuff comes out.
Yeah.
Asbestos and benzene and radium and methane and
Causing earthquakes.
yeah,
All
kinds of
that
stuff.
is coming out.
Yeah.
That's not the stuff they're putting in.
No,
This stuff is coming out because of their
that's right. That's
their
right. Plus, it
Well,
caused all these
plus
earthquakes.
plus they put stuff in.
yes, they put
Yeah.
other stuff in that's
So,
Yeah.
so on the one hand, it is just a very secular point of view. We can do this because we can do it, right? And on the other hand, what he's saying is that we are slowly also gaining in consciousness about what we can and cannot do. Things can heal, but people have to be aware that you're doing damage in the first place. And they're not, a lot of people don't, still catching up with. They don't quite get that.
People are still in denial about global climate change.
Yeah, which is
Even as New Jersey is contemplating whether or not to rebuild cities like Margate.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like you to consider as the target of your meditations to be able to see yourself in the universe, have this overall view of the significance of your being in the universe, whatever that means, instead of thinking of yourself in your personal vantage point. Okay, for just a moment, just close your eyes and see how that works for you. Remember the meditation in the solar plexus and out the heart. Start there, and then as you feel comfortable with being in your being, express yourself as an aspect of the universe rather than from the individual viewpoint. And see how that works for you. Just pause this. Okay. That was quick, I know. You need more time to work on it, I'm sure, but maybe you got a little clue. Did you get a clue?
Just felt the possibility of the universe expressing itself through me. Allowing myself to be and to emerge. That there's nothing is static. That it's ongoing. But the question remained, in a sense, of responsibility there. I mean, that question was still hanging.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's like how it would take form.
Okay.
I mean, the recognition of responsibility is there, but how it would manifest is something else.
All right.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I don't know if I ever get to a place where I am totally in a sense of the absence of self. Like I might experience it as I'm one of the stars, I'm one of the angels, I'm a cell in a beehive. So I have a sense of being part of that whole. Or I can put myself out there and breathe into the being of the self. But I don't know that I ever lose that identity of the individuality.
Then that's something to work on. Right? It's there to be done. Okay? Yeah.
I think it happens both at the same time. It's like it's just as if when you're meditating, you're still aware of the room that you're in. You're aware of
Physicality.
Yeah, physicality at the same time. It's like it both things are present. I don't know.
But there are moments when that's no longer true.
That's true.
Okay? So, the important thing to recognize, I think, for you is that there's somewhere to go and that it is possible. Because you might have had just a sense that maybe there is that there, right?
Well,
That's
just
good.
by noticing that it wasn't happening.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
So I wonder if, I don't know, I'd have to give some thought as to whether I think I've experienced that at other times.
Sometimes it happens regardless, but it's so fast.
Yeah.
It could be a nanosecond, so you lost it. It's like.
As soon as you give your personal attention to it.
Yeah.
So that it's a skill that you can learn by practice. Okay. Anyone else? Did you have something?
I think I might have mistook the intention of connecting with the universe, but I was trying to get my purpose.
How's that working for you?
So that was
So you went off in a different direction.
yeah.
Kind of.
I guess I
Well, that's
did.
okay.
Yeah.
That's all right.
And it was, and it came back sort of as I'm trying to help people find the power in themselves, or that maybe express that.
Yeah, but that wasn't the purpose of this particular exercise.
Yeah, see, that's
But
what
still, that's the responsibility part of it
That you were
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that we were all talking about before.
Yeah.
But so that's what you went for.
Yeah, I
It's
think
like-
so. But
Okay.
the responsibility or it's like, well, what part of the message of the universe, as far as humanity goes, are you participating in to further humanity in some way? But that could only be my own thinking. But I thought about it and it's like, well, yeah, it's not something that is my opinion. It's something that is I witness more than it's my opinion. I witness its existence, the life and the power that we have inherent in our bodies, and that it's almost very physical, but other people deal with it in other ways, psychological or neurological.
Okay.
But
Okay. Thanks. Alima, did you have?
but so I went in the wrong direction.
You did fine. Don't worry about it.
I don't have words.
Okay. Then you don't need them. Okay, here's what Parablight has to say about it. At this point, something happens that destroys our mental constructs because we realize that if we are able to have the slightest understanding about the motion of the stars or the interplay of the atoms and electrons, it is because our mind thinks the way the mind of the universe thinks. Our mind is not reading the mind of the universe. Our mind is, as Piro Murshid says, the mind of the universe. It is the convergence of the incredible intelligence of the whole universe in all its richness. It converges in each one of us. One uses the word focalize. It gets focalized just like the convergence of beams in a lens. So, do you see what he's saying? That it's not something you do, it's something you allow. Do you see the difference?
The non-striving for it.
You don't strive for it, you just let it happen. But what that means, of course, is that you have to turn away from your personal vantage point, and that's the hard part.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that wasn't, and I was totally in my personal vantage.
Yeah, you were. But that's okay, but now you know.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, actually, I went toggled.
You went back and...
So it's like you get the picture of the totality, and at the same time going back to, okay, what is the personal responsibility within that?
Yeah.
So it was like it toggled.
Okay then. It's okay.
Yeah. All right.
You did okay.
Oh, thank you, dear. Okay.
Yeah. You passed.
Did you pass?
Oh yeah, I didn't talk about me, did I?
No.
No. Well, I started to get into that. I know how to do it, and I was starting to get into that place, and I thought, if I go into this, I'll never come back. So I'll just go ahead and stop here. And what I recognize is that I've learned the trick of stepping away from the personal consciousness, and that's kind of what it is. It's kind of a trick. It's how do I do it?
Is it a trick you're playing yourself?
Maybe, yeah, kind of. Because I'm sitting here and I start out with the breathing, right? just like I said. And as that settled in, I just began to pay attention to the rhythm of the body. And then I began to focus on not focusing, I guess. You know, I was teaching this to somebody the other day. One of my other students that comes here just privately. And the way I taught her was a very simple exercise. I don't think I've ever told you guys. Go outside on a day when there's just wispy clouds in the air, in the sky. Look at a cloud, just a small cloud, and see it not there. And that cloud will disappear. And this is how you learn how to do that. Okay? It's a simple exercise, but it's how you can train your mind to slip into this alternate reality of away from, because your personal consciousness says, well, of course the cloud's there, I can see it. But you have to see it not there. And it'll disappear. Okay? And if you do that exercise, you'll begin to develop this skill for doing this very thing that he's talking about. I completely forgot about that until just now. And remember I was teaching this girl. Okay? So try that.
So is it like when you're doing the focus on an object exercise and you close your eyes and you recreate it in your mind's eye, but you have to get past the optical tricks of the eye, cones of the eye, to be able to do that. So that's that trick. So you have to get past the visual impact that you have when you first close your eyes,
because
in order to actually visualize the object.
When the rods and cones do their thing, your brain still processes it, right?
So you have to look
and creates an image in the brain.
So you have to trick your brain into not paying attention to that, so that you can visualize it, which is a combination of memory and imagination, right?
I suppose. I don't know, but just I've never tried to describe it other than just make the cloud go away, disappear the cloud, and once you do it once, you're like, wow, that's cool, but you have to understand that little trick that happens in your mind. And you can't describe it. It's just it's just something to learn, huh?
Yeah, tell your mind the cloud's not there.
You see the cloud not there.
You see the sky without a cloud.
Yeah. Even though you're looking at it and you can see the cloud. And eventually it'll just disappear. It'll just go away. It's very cool.
So this is, I guess we could describe it as samadhi with open eyes?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Yeah, because samadhi with open eyes is refusing to accept the personal vantage point from one definition.
Yeah, he goes on to describe the samadhi, doesn't he?
I don't remember.
Oh, not in this one. Okay.
It's in somewhere else.
Okay.
Okay. Well, this next lesson is going to be good for you.
Oh, this next lesson is...
Oh, yeah, it's really complicated.
It gets very personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next lesson is very powerful.
Okay, it is this awareness that is the basis of your meditation. Instead of isolating yourselves and encapsulating yourselves in your psyche, you want to enhance your consciousness beyond the personal vantage point to such an extent that as you see yourself in the universe, you discover, at least in the cosmic dimension of your being, that one is the universe. Okie dokie. Now this is the cool part. The universe cannot be the object of your knowledge because one is the convergence of the universe oneself. Okay? In other words, you can be an astronomer and catalog all of these stars and nebulae and this and that and the other thing, but you're not seeing the universe. You're seeing evidence of the universe. Okay? See the difference?
The other way of being the universe.
Being the universe. I'll read it again. The universe cannot be the object of one's knowledge because one is the convergence of the universe itself. Okay? This is pretty heavy metaphysics, actually. Okay, the Sufis speak about the light that sees instead of the light that is seen. That is the ultimate knowledge, the light that sees. Indubitably, we shall be making the next step in the evolutionary process, that of reaching into the convergence of the thinking of the universe and the emotion, the consciousness, and the intelligence of the universe. Do you know how sometimes I'll say that the next step for humanity is friendship?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there it is. Being friends with who you are. You are the universe. Can you be friends with yourself? Which would mean being friends with every single being that exists, including the atoms, right? Which is a Buddhist idea too, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't know.
Right now, it's a little difficult for people. They're afraid of being. There are people. Many humans right now are afraid of being friends for fear of being used, right? Or somehow dominated or whatever.
Taken advantage of.
Taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just last week someone was expressing that. And they were telling me, but yeah, people want you for a reason. You know, want to be friends with you for a reason. They want something from you. And I thought, wow, God. Anyway, you know, I don't feel that way. I guess that I don't have a lot that people want to just be friends.
Yeah.
They don't want anything.
What can we do about you? I don't know. What are we doing here? Okay. We know that the sun has an impact on our weather, but that is the physical sun. The archangel of the sun has a significance for us in our ways of thinking. That is something that we need to discover. Okay, why is he saying that?
The underlying consciousness.
You exist within it. We exist within the corona of the sun, therefore you exist within the being of Prince Harash.
And we're affected by it.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our thinking as well as the
Yeah, and remember the obverse in which your actions affect the being of the archangel of the sun, right? Just like the wave affects the whole ocean.
Yeah.
Okay, does that help? Does that analogy make sense more now? Okay. In the teachings of Shahabadin Surawardi, there is what is called the solar initiation. Okay. Refer to lesson 6 for breathing techniques and looking at the sun. We did that way back 2 years ago. We're coming to the end of this whole course, you know. We'll finish it this year. Next, learn how to expose the different chakras to the sun by imagining that the point in your chest where your heart center converges in a flat surface like a sheet of paper. There's just one position, a point on a sheet of paper, which would be exposed to a central beam of the sun hitting that paper at absolutely right angles to the central beam issued from the sun. When you do that, you will experience the way that your heart chakra opens under the effect of the light of the photons that are being sent by the sun. You can do the same thing with your third eye and your crown center and your solar plexus.
Yeah, we used to do this outside.
Yeah,
So we could go outside.
we could go outside, but you have the light of the sun right in this very room.
Yes.
You do. It's here.
Yes, but you feel it more directly when you're outside and you're facing the sun and it hits your heart.
Okay, do you realize what our neighbors are going to see when they see a bunch of people walking outside?
Well, we could go to the backyard. It's okay.
Fewer neighbors.
Would you like to do that? Or no? Okay. So what I want you to do is just sit there.
It's cold out there.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh, these wimpy Philadelphians.
And he had us like do the third eye and the turn our back to the sun and feel it on the chakra from the back. And
So-
remember that?
Yeah, I do remember it, and I always kind of escaped when he did those things. Because I always felt weird with all these people around me. I don't know. It's okay by myself. But what you can do is, did you hear what he said? I'll read it again. Expose the different chakras to the sun by imagining the point in your chest where your heart center is converges on a flat surface like a sheet of paper. Just
I
like
don't get that part. I picture my chakra as a
as
dot,
a flat surface.
as a dot on
As
a
a
sheet of
dot.
paper.
On a
Okay.
flat surface.
Okay.
And this ray of the sun is impacting this flat surface at right angles. So directly, and you can imagine because you're sitting within the corona of the sun right now. So just close your eyes and imagine that. And when you do that, you experience the way that your heart chakra opens up under the effect of the light of photons that are being sent by the sun. And then shift that concentration to your third eye. Same thing. So that the ray of the sun is at right angles to the third eye. And then the crown center, and then the solar plexus in that order. Okay, and then just as Majida was saying, if you do this exercise outside, you can turn your back to the sun and do the same thing with each of the chakras, positioning your body exactly in such a way that the particular chakra that you are concentrating on is in exactly the position to accommodate the sun's rays at a right angle to the main beam. And you'll feel your chakras opening up. And he says this is a very basic practice, which is true. So it's something you can do.
I'm a little confused about the right angle thing.
It's like a laser beam.
Well, so like this is your chest, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right angle.
So if the sun's coming from this angle, then you tilt your head back. Or,
Yeah, move your body back like that.
Are you getting it?
Yeah.
So
you understand?
It's actually easiest to do. You know when it's easiest to do? At dawn. This is a practice that you can often do during the retreat. You go out at dawn.
Yeah.
Or some place where you can see
Because
the
the
sun
sun's low.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the sun's right.
So, but what I felt was a smallness of area. I didn't feel an opening up. I felt as though I was intentionally creating a the dot. Like I got caught up in the dot.
You
It
did.
became very hot and very like it was like, okay, there's too much there. You know.
Okay, how do you feel now?
I still feel like I'm carrying those dots.
Well, instead of that piece of paper, just think of the chakra, the whirling cone that's there, and go from that.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to follow Pirpalayat's instructions exactly, because what he's doing is he's describing how he does it.
Yeah, I don't understand why you would use a dot.
It's the way he does it.
To make it
Really
focalize
focalized,
like
yeah.
a laser beam.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it slowly grows.
Okay. So maybe if I spent more time with one chakra,
Yeah, you get it.
I would go past that.
It's like a lot of these practices, the first time you're introduced to it, you go, what?
Yeah.
and then as you do them, you begin to realize
Yeah.
their efficacy.
Well, I had a similar thing. It's like that dot and the gesture. I mean, like a piece
It
of
was
paper
very
just
intense.
exploded. It's like it just burned
Just
up.
went,
Yeah.
Okay, the clue
excuse me.
to the more advanced practices of looking into the sun consist in realizing the meaning of the words of Plotinus, the Greek philosopher in the 3rd century. To look into the sun, one has to have eyes like the sun. That is, the photons that are issued from your eyes are strong enough to protect you from being burnt by the photons of the sun, provided you will very consciously send out very intense beams of light from your eyes. This is linked with becoming aware of one's aura, identifying with one's aura, considering the body as a hard core within the aura, like a crystallization of the aura, and knowing how to concentrate on 2 centers, the heart center and the crown center. Now, this is a very advanced practice, and anybody listening to this recording who can't do this, don't do it, okay, without some serious individual instruction. Think of the third eye as a projection of the crown center, which sends out high-frequency rays of light like ultraviolet, which again protect the eyes from the input of the infrared eyes of the sun, because they will burn your eyes. Now, what he would recommend, as I recall, and I'm sure you recall this is again a practice that you do at dawn, where you can in fact look at the sun.
But you look at the rim.
Yeah, but it's right on the horizon, and it still has to, all those rays have to come through all of that atmosphere before they get to your eyes, and as it rises up, you gradually look away. And what happens is that as you learn to project these rays from your eyes, that very slowly you're able to look at the sun. But this is not amateur time. This is very, very, very difficult practice.
I have to say, when I was a child, I didn't know you weren't supposed to look at the sun. And I did practice looking at the sun, and I was never damaged in that way. There must have been some kind of protection going on there,
Yeah.
Because I wasn't focusing on sending light through my eyes or anything.
You must have
like
been
that.
doing it just naturally, not even knowing you were doing it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But no, I don't recall doing anything like that, But
Did he ever teach to do similar practices with the moon?
no.
No, Pirpalayat didn't really concentrate much on the moon, as I recall. I don't recall him talking much about it. Murshid does.
Yeah, Murshid does.
Murshid talks about the moon as the mirror of the sun, because it is reflecting the light of the sun, right?
So could one start by practicing with the moon?
I suppose you could.
Yeah.
You're seeing reflected light. Yeah.
That's interesting, because early on, people would practice, it was before, just beginning to be acquainted with Pirpalayat, in fact, that the people around him would say, okay, concentrate on a planet, or, go outside and just look at a star and focus on that planet, whatever it was, in Venus, Mars, Jupiter, whatever, and see how it makes you feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's like those were kind of some early practices.
Mm-hmm.
And the moon, I don't think he concentrated on the moon because of the lunacy associated with it, Yeah.
Because of the lunacy?
Yeah,
But he did get
that the
practice.
lunar, the
Yeah.
term lunacy comes from the lunar, the idea of the moon, concentrating on the moon.
Oh.
It was so that on the early days of civilization, that's what it was connected with. People who concentrated so much on the moon became insane or whatever. We're lunatics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, huh?
Yeah.
The things you learn when you come here.
Yeah.
Now, as far, I'm probably being way too practical, but on the right angle thing for the crown chakra is.
Yeah, you'd have to
Well,
like
you
bend your head.
bend your head.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Or lift
Not
your
bend.
head, or bend your head, or lift your back, or
Yeah.
shift your body.
yeah, so that you're at the right
Yeah.
angle.
Yeah.
So that you're really facing it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay.
So you think that actual physical proximity is important in that practice,
Yeah, it can be.
not
yeah.
just
I mean, I was
being in the light of the sun and
as I was
imagining
doing the
that.
practice, I was visualizing the sun in front of me.
Yeah, well,
You
that's
know,
why I
with
laid
the
down.
rare
So it's
coming-
like, all right, I can visualize the sun being directly above.
Whatever works for you,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay.
And it is a pretty basic practice that you can work on.
It's nice to do in the morning, very early morning, as you said,
Mm-hmm.
because it's I don't know, it has a refreshing quality to it.
Mm-hmm.
Uplifting and refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I was doing my long retreat, that was one of the most special moments. Was getting up at 5 a.m. and going down to the beach and sitting there and watching the sun come up. I could feel the what do you call it?
Rays.
The ultraviolet coming over the horizon is the false dawn, I think they call it, right? And doing this practice, other light practices.
First light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really powerful. It was one of the best parts of the day, actually. Yeah, and it's a kind of a recognition of it is a recognition of our the word that comes to mind is memory. Our memory of pre-existence, pre-eternity. There is a memory that allows us to tune into the expression that we agreed to be part of, no matter how you may feel right now. And then the absolute joy of this participatory expression of divine intent that we've been talking about all day. Once you get over worrying about who you are, it becomes quite wonderful. It's nice to get your bills paid, but other stuff is going on too. I still have that hippie mentality. Yeah, it'll take care of itself. It's still there. It's still there. I swear to God it is. Okay, my dears. We have come to the end of the lesson.
Shall we do a Zangziger?
What would you like to do?
I would like to. Let's do Mershid Sikr.
Okay, we'll do it. And we'll end the day with that. Love. El
perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice, which constantly comes from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness, teach us thy loving forgiveness, raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide us, send us the peace of thy divine Spirit, and unite us all in thy perfect being. Disclose to us thy divine light, 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 disclose to us thy divine light. Warner of coming dangers, awakener of the world from sleep, deliverer of the message of God, thou art our Savior, the sun at the dawn of creation, the light of the whole universe, the fulfillment of God's purpose. Thou, the life eternal, we seek refuge in thy loving enfoldment. Spirit of guidance, source of all beauty and creator of harmony, love, lover, and beloved Lord, thou art our divine ideal. O thou who art the maker, molder, and builder of the universe, build with thine own hands the universal, our temple for thy divine message of love, harmony, and beauty.